right, everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. That's fine, no worries. This panel continues the conversation around the impact on immigration enforcement on community members, directly from those impacted, those speaking on those impacted, the courage it requires to speak publicly about these experiences should not be taken lightly. So I thank each and every one of you for being here. And to all the folks that are watching, thank you for bearing witness to this as well. Your testimony today helps ensure that these experiences are documented as part of a broader civil rights record. So the panelists that we have before us are Violeta Hernandez, Director of Early Childhood Initiatives and Program Policy at CLUS. We have Mary Hernandez, the Executive Director of Mi Casa. Francisco Segovia, Executive Director of COPAL. We have Dr. Habon Abdul, Executive Director of Ayala Leads. We have Hwa-Jong Kim, Council Vice President of St. Paul City Council and Executive Director of Minnesota Voice. And then finally we have John Pacheco Jr., President and founder of the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Minnesota. And so we can go ahead and start with Violeta, if you want to kick us off. And 5 to 7 minutes each panelist, if you would do us a favor on that.
Gracias, Chair Garza, por the opportunity. Buenas tardes a todos. Thank you for the opportunity to amplify the voice of community in front of you today. My name is Violeta Hernandez Espinosa, and I am Director of Early Childhood Initiatives and Program Policy at CLUS, where you are. Thank you. Welcome. However, I wear many hats in our community. Before sharing some of the impacts of Operation Metro Surge on families and children from our vantage point, I'd like to briefly share that in my second shift, I have been co-building a family business with my brother since 2018, which has grown to 11 shops in the Metro and Greater Minnesota areas, and was named Business of the Year last year by the Latino Chamber of Commerce, who you'll hear from later. But that we got to the point of considering bankruptcy due to the loss of sales of up to 60% in the last 3 years. I'd also like to share that when I'm not working with CLUS or with community through CLUS, in my third shift, I've been involved in various rapid response initiatives, including Indigenous Roots Operation and Operación Vuelo Sagrado, and currently working to build a statewide network of rapid responders and mobilizing small business owners towards legislative action. I also serve on the board of the Center for Victims of Torture, a multinational organization that has turned its focus more towards home here in Minnesota. My sister and my niece are both teachers, one in Eden Prairie Schools, a suburban school, and another in urban-based Richfield Public Schools. Both witnessed significant drops in enrollment and quiet administrations. The drastic drop in enrollment impacting them to the point of tears, worried for their students and their families. Teachers are some of the strongest human beings, but this is what is happening to them. Imagine as they try to re-engage with students who are coming back to in-person schooling. Imagine having to regulate and explain to your remaining students why their classmates are not in class and gone overnight, or seeing parents being arrested in apartment buildings next to schools. And then returning home to their own young children. I share this background to say that I'm still eyes and ears on the ground. Like many of us in rapid response networks and who are a part of an impacted community. And I want to make sure that as we walk away from here and from this space, that we know it's not over. The cameras and violence may have slowed, and our political representatives may be speaking in ways that imply that this operation is coming to an end. But to those of us who are close to the work, we know sadly it is not. Many of us know that we truly are in a false spring on this operation. For those who are from out of state, that is what Minnesotans call this time of year, when we get a few days of really nice weather, followed by snow. In my 30 years living in Minnesota as an immigrant, and my 20 years serving the nonprofit and public sectors, I have not seen anything like what we are living. So my hope is that we will all be focusing next on scenario planning. Now, there is no doubt that those most impacted by this attack on our communities have been and will continue to be the children. Our Early Childhood Initiatives Department serves childcare providers and indirectly the families they serve. Our community networks, programs, and trainings reach up to 600 childcare providers. The initial effect of the operation was the drop in enrollment in childcare spaces, as families did not want to or could not leave their homes to safely bring their children to their care spaces. While many did want their children to continue in care and education, as they saw the developmental impact on their children, they did not feel safe driving. The children and eventually funds became short. Many providers were and are providing services even when parents are owing them months of unpaid enrollment due to loss of jobs and savings. And they want to help parents. But the result, especially with family childcare providers, is that they are now struggling to stay open due to income losses. We have some providers who have decided to close their doors, and some are returning to their home countries as the fear and insecurity is too much for them. We see their posts on our WhatsApp groups selling their items for their childcare spaces. We had one provider who had to pause her operation to shelter in her home, which was ultimately highly targeted as her family lives in a trailer home. This provider ultimately had to leave the state for over a month to help their 8-year-old child recenter, as she was having panic attacks with behaviors that would worry any parent. There was a parent who was arrested on the way to one of our network providers' family childcare spaces, while the children were already strapped in the car seat. This was a family who was already struggling to pay the provider. After this, the family was left without dad, traumatized, looking for help to survive with basic needs. And the provider, even more stressed. Other parents had been taken before this case. We also have to remember that most of our staff at CLUS, Comunidades Latinas Unidas en Servicio, are a part of one of the most impacted communities by this federal operation, which has added stress to our own operation. CLUS launched a family childcare business incubator last fall, with all 4 of our providers getting licensed and operating since January of this year. But the nascent businesses have been impacted by low enrollment. We think this is largely due to what we are living as a state. Our family services team, which focuses more on parent education and services, has also continued their regular home visit program, but with a highly new and stressful context. At times, staff fearing for their own safety as they go visit families. They share that pregnant moms have stopped going to their prenatal appointments due to the fear of being detained. December 5th, that's the date one of these families went into isolation and hasn't come out yet. Their staff is also now delivering boxes of food and other needs in their visits. In fact, beyond our role expectations, many of us are delivering food boxes to homes and directing referrals and questions on basic needs from our community. We are still facing a 300 family wait list for rent support, and our Canasta program continues to be pushed beyond capacity. In our department, much of our programming moved to virtual modes, as the systems still have requirements to maintain license to operate, so the work had to continue, but within a more stressful environment. We began a 2-month Círculo de Apoyo program with weekly emotional support meetings for providers to address the anxiety and stress they were facing. In general, the work continued as we tried to adjust to needs, but it hasn't been easy for staff, as we've seen directly the devastating impacts on our served communities. And many of us are directly impacted ourselves. Finally, I'd like to close by saying that we already had a childcare shortage in Minnesota and in the nation. Now we will have an even steeper issue if we are not able to support providers to make it through in this ongoing operation. And the big questions my parents remain: how long will this continue? Who will take care of my children if I'm detained? Who will help me pay the house bills if my partner is detained? My children are U.S. citizens, yet they are treated as if they are not. What conversations do I have with them about this without further traumatizing them. I can tell you that my 9-year-old niece knows that she has to say she's a U.S. citizen if the car is stopped at any point. Amigos, the light has been seen Minnesotans stepping up to help their neighbors. May we all find strength to continue pushing back and defending our communities. We can't let them steal our joy. We are part of la resistencia. Muchas gracias.
Barry. Go ahead, Barry.
I don't know, is that good?
Yeah, I think.
Buenas tardes y gracias por la oportunidad de hablar hoy. Yo soy Mari Hernández. I'm one of 5 Latina founders of Mi Casa, which stands for Comunidad, Apoyo, Solidaridad y Amistad. I am a mother of 4, 3 of them which are born and raised in Shakopee, Minnesota. At Mi Casa, we believe in something simple but powerful. We're building the city our children deserve. Mi Casa is not just a program. We're a movement embedded in the fabric of Scott and Carver County. Our work is rooted in community, culture, as it's not our culture and our traditions is not something we check out at the border. We believe that when our families are supported, entire communities thrive. We focus on shortening the line for families who need support. Our approach is not charity, it's change. We work to remove barriers and create systems that respond to real community needs as of today. Our services include culturally responsive mental health support, food distributions, workforce development, and community wellness initiative. Youth empowerment, all of these designed to help build a healthy and thriving community. What we have seen in the last 90 days has been a significant increase of demand for social services. We went from 100 a week, families going through our pantry, to 1,400 a week receiving food. Mi Casa Response has strengthened partnerships and expanded our reach all the way out to St. Cloud and Mankato. We partner with Unidos Minnesota, which has equipped us and trained us to provide responder training for our volunteers and allies, ensuring that all the people delivering food and resources are also prepared to respond to community needs with care and cultural understanding. Through these collaborations and with the support of many local organizations, Mi Casa has helped distribute over 5 million pounds of food to families in our area in the last 90 days. At Mi Casa, our goal is clear: to build a healthy, thriving community where every family and every child has the opportunity to succeed. With this said, as we continue to hear the name Metro Search and Time Magazine quoted, our city under siege. Our mothers delivering at home for fear of going to the hospital and seeing our parents detained, seeing ICE agents walking into the hospital and arresting them. We had 200 of our students in Shakopee stop attending school, and a class of 23 students, 8 showed up. Our districts were not equipped and prepared to have 2 teachers, one for virtual and one for in person. Truancy calls were made to our parents as our families were keeping the students at home. We organized to say back off. We worked with our administration to ask them to understand something that's not easy to grasp for any of us. This fear has been paralyzing for our families, to the point where we were arrested as we were taking our garbage outside our own homes. We were being watched, we were being hunted. With enforcement in ways that felt more than aggressive and unpredictable. It's our lives that were at stake. Our humanity was being ripped from us. We were taking shelter where we couldn't even exit our front door. We feel exhausted. We are heartbroken And yet we carry a deep pride and call ourselves proud to be Minnesotans because we have seen our community come together. We have stepped up to support those families in need from St. Cloud to Mankato to the cities. Too often, our communities such as Shakopee, Mankato, St. Cloud are invisible during this moment as we saw it hit our twin cities. With the same fear but limited resources and support, Mi Casa stepped up with the support of Unidos Minnesota and other organizations and partnerships, as we know that not one single organization could carry this weight alone. These experiences have left deep wounds that will last for generations. When our children have grown up witnessing how much we have feared, the trauma that it will not disappear, it has now become part of our story and the story of generations to come. We believe in trust. We work with word of mouth. We will not stay silent. As we have seen drones as our community delivered food, drones were all over the city. Our volunteers and our chaperones were being chased and were being intimidating. They were told by ICE agents that they had their addresses, they broke their windows, and they said that they would shoot them in front of their kids in their homes. We stand in the front lines together. We were told that Minnesota would be an example, and thank God Minnesota is an example of families and community coming together. My children are growing up seeing the persecution we received, but they also have seen those allies that are with us. Our volunteers and our partners and our neighbors did step up, and we're proud to call ourselves from Minnesota. The honor and the strength and the humanity returned to us by showing up for your neighbors and for your community. Our freedom vale la pena, and we stand together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Francisco?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Francisco Segovia, and I serve as the Executive Director of Comunidades Organizando el Poder y la Acción Latina, COPAL. I want to thank the conveners to today's hearing. It is essential that we tell the stories. Minnesota is home to vibrant immigrant communities that contribute deeply to our economy, our culture, and our democracy. Yet, too often, those same communities face fear, separation, and violations of their fundamental rights. We, as immigrants, are tools to defend our rights, our yellow vest, a whistle, and a constitutional observer training booklet that we use to defend our rights. Many of us who are lucky enough to have a passport, we always carry it with us. Do people here carry their passports? Yeah. So, here, raise your hand.
I do too.
You too. So this is where we are right now. I want to share with you the story of Nora, a mother of three and a member of our community here in Minnesota. Nora's story illustrates not only the human cost of immigration enforcement, but also the profound impact that these actions have in our families, children, and the stability of our entire communities. So Nora reached out and have wanted us to share her story because she wants justice. It is Nora's statement. I, Nora, 30 years old and a citizen of Ecuador, present the following statement regarding my detention, the detention of my husband, Josue, which occurred on December 1st, 2025, in the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the harm of this event has caused to my family, especially to our children. My husband, Josue, we had Josue, 31 years old. We are married and parents of 3 children. 2 of our children were born in Ecuador, and our youngest child was born in the United States. Joyce, who is 6 right now, Santiago, almost 3, and Samuel, born in Minnesota, March 2025. At the moment of the incident, he was only 9 months old. My husband and I entered the United States August of 2023 through the border at Eagle Pass, Texas, seeking refuge and protection. We currently have a pending asylum case before the immigration court. While our case is being decided, we have work permits and social security numbers. Since arriving in Minnesota, we have tried to build an honest and stable life for our children. During our journey, we traveled through Colombia and walked through 3 days through the Darien jungle to reach Panama. It was extremely difficult to make this journey while carrying our newborn baby, but the hope of a better life gave us the strength to keep moving forward. We continued our journey through Central America and Mexico. While in Mexico, we were kidnapped for 7 days by human traffickers. During that time, we were held until our relatives were forced to pay additional money for our release. After that traumatic experience, we finally reached to the United States border and crossed the Rio Grande. We were detained by the U.S. Border Patrol agents who interviewed us. We explained that we were fleeing Ecuador and seeking protection. Afterwards, we were released with documents instructing us to appear before the immigration court. The day our lives changed, our dreams that turned into nightmares. On December 1st, 2025, around 5:41 p.m., my husband was in his vehicle with our children, Santiago and Samuel. Again, Samuel was at the moment 9 months old. They were to where to pick up Joyce, who was being carried by a relative. When Joyce came out of the house and opened the car door to get in, ICE agents suddenly appeared and surrounded the vehicle. The agents took advantage of the open door to unlock the vehicle and gain access inside. Then they ordered my husband to exit the vehicle. My husband explained that his children were inside the car and that he did not want to leave them alone. Joyce and Santiago began crying and panicking when they saw what was happening. Despite the presence of small children, the agents used force to remove my husband from the vehicle. My husband was beaten and dragged out of the car while our children witnessed everything. After the agents took my husband away, what it appears to be an Uber vehicle, my children were left completely alone inside the vehicle with the doors open. It was winter in Minnesota, and the temperature that day was close to 20 degrees. My younger children were exposed to the cold, the snow, in a situation of abandonment. My daughter Joyce cried desperately and screamed, begging them not to take her father away. The situation was extremely traumatic for them. People nearby became alarmed when they saw children alone inside the vehicle and called the authorities of the city of Minneapolis to ask for help. The relative who was caring for Joyce witnessed what was happening from the doorway. Like many immigrants, she was afraid of being arrested and did not feel safe enough to go outside and intervene. Once the agents left, she immediately called me to tell me that immigration agents had taken my husband and that my children had been left alone. At that moment, I was in a laundromat. When I received the phone call, I began crying, asking people around for help. Someone helped me to request an Uber so I could get there quickly. Meanwhile, the relative who had been caring for Joyce picked up the children and kept them safe until I arrived. There are videos reported by the community members showing how my children were left alone inside the vehicle in the cold and the snow after the agents took their father away. There are also people who witnessed the entire scene and can testify about the use of force in the situation in which the children were left. After the detention, my husband suffered paralysis of his hands and legs due to the injuries he received. For this reason, he was transported to the emergency room of a hospital in Iowa where he received medical treatment. As of today, my husband has been detained for more than 99 days. His health remains fragile, and I'm concerned that the conditions inside the detention center may worsen his recovery. What happened has a deep emotional impact on our children. My daughter Joyce has received therapy, but still cries at night asking why her father was taken away. Our children witnessed the violent detention of the father in the moments he was separated from them. After the arrest, our family faced serious financial difficulties. We had to move to a smaller and more affordable home. For some time, I had to stop working to care for my children, but I returned to work on March 3rd, working from 5:30 a.m. in the morning to 2 p.m. A family member took care of my children while at work, and kind neighbors helped by taking the children to school. I firmly believe that my husband was detained. My husband's detained placed the safety and well-being of our children in serious danger. The agents left the small children alone inside a vehicle in cold winter weather of Minnesota, which could have had serious consequences. Our children were exposed to a traumatic and dangerous situation that no child should have ever had experienced. For all these reasons, I ask for justice for my husband and protection for my family. Signature, Nora, a mother who deeply concerned about the well-being of her family. End of the story. Nora's story is a reminder that behind every immigration enforcement action is a family, a child, a parent, and a community whose rights and dignity are on the line. As we hear these testimonies today, let us commit to centering human rights, ensuring accountability, and creating policies that protect, not punish, the families who contribute so much to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Dr. Abdul?
Salam. Good afternoon. My name is Habon Abdullah. I'm the Executive Director of Ayeda Leads. Our organization works with African diaspora women and families in Minnesota, supporting them as they develop leadership, navigate institutions, and strengthen connections with their communities. I wanted to begin by thanking this coalition of advocates, organizers, and allies for bringing together the people's hearing on immigration enforcement today. Spaces like this matter because they center the voices of those most impacted and remind us that our communities will not stay silent in the face of injustice. We know the Metro enforcement surge may have scaled down, but the impacts have not. Our communities are still living with the consequence. As many other colleagues here share, families are dealing with income loss, with fear to leave their houses, with fear to go worship houses. The experience of our community includes, but are not limited, to neighbors being taken from the streets, from their cars, and from their homes, from their mosques, and sent to detention centers. Recently, a young Somali woman, an American-born citizen, was simply running errands in her community when she was stopped and detained. She was taken to the detention center and held there for nearly 24 hours. On the way to the detention center, she reported that she was sexually assaulted. Even after telling officers that she was a U.S. citizen, they refused to release. She was released only when her husband physically brought her passport to the detention center to prove it. Imagine that for a moment. A citizen born in this country detained simply because of who she is and how she looks. Stories like this are why so many families are living in fear right now. Over the past months, at Ayeda Leeds, we have seen, again, families afraid to leave their home, to go to work, to go to grocery stores, and even take their children to school. Because of that fear, many families suddenly lost income and access to basic necessities. Ayeda Leeds is not a service organization. Our mission is, as I said, is a leadership development and community organizing. But at this moment, we had no choice but to help, to step up. Our team and our community mobilized quickly. Together, we helped secure food for hundreds of families across the Twin Cities and the suburbs. We connected people to mutual aid networks, community organizations, and neighbors willing to support one another. We help families navigate resources, find legal information, and simply make it through the week. This is what a community looks like when systems fail us. When institutions create harm, it's often our communities that step in first to protect one another. But let me be clear, our communities should not have to carry this burden alone. People who belong here legally who are here legally, are being treated as if they do not matter essentially, disappearing from the community in Minnesota and transported within hours to detention centers hundreds or even thousands of miles away. And saying legally, I don't disregard people who are undocumented here. They have rights. They have human rights, and their rights need to be respected. At Ayeda Leeds, we believe deeply in the leadership and power of immigrant community, especially women, to shape and make just future. And today, I'm proud to stand in solidarity with everyone gathered here. We will keep organizing, we will keep speaking to the truth, and we will keep fighting together until every member of our community is safe, respected, and able to live with dignity. Thank you.
Greetings, yeah. Hwajan Kim, my pronouns are she, her. I'm a council member in St. Paul, and I also have the honor of running a nonprofit organization called Minnesota Voice. We've been training constitutional observers with the IDN, filling in community patrol shifts, and helping support community dispatch, and supporting localized mutual aid efforts since last summer when ICE began descending upon my state. And my first, as an elected official, one of my first check-ins with one of my constituents was last June. I became a constitutional observer through the IDN August 8th. One of the first raids that happened in St. Paul was just a few blocks from my house. I represent a neighborhood, and I live in a neighborhood where the vast majority of us look like us, and the predominant population was not born here. So I'm speaking both as someone that represents, but is also speaking today as a naturalized citizen. Between December 1st and March 6th, together as a state, we've been able to document about 4,400 ICE incidents. And this is community vetted, community provided, but also I don't think actually represents the full scope, because this is just what we were able to witness. 827 abductions, 3,600 people detained and put on ICE flights, which means we have witnessed about 22% of the abductions, and we're able to document for families. The bulk of this data is from Operation Metro Surge, where our daily averages were about 140 incidences per day. So this data also doesn't include the horrors that extended into greater Minnesota, since a lot of this rapid response network infrastructure is connected and mainly to the Twin Cities. In most areas of the Twin Cities and across Minnesota, everyone knows an impacted family. And this is both a product of what we've built and a statement of our beautiful interconnectedness. Our resistance is what we're known for, but we cannot overshadow the incredible terror and fear that our family members are experiencing. On the same day that our beloved community member, 20-year-old Jeffrey, was kidnapped without a warrant after a 5-hour standoff in a street in St. Paul, we had Truth in Taxation, and members of our community showed up, and a school social worker talked to me about how one of her students that morning was having a mental health crisis. A middle schooler was considering ending their life to make it all stop. The first week in January was one of the first documented and provable incidences of racial profiling in my neighborhood. ICE agents approached one of my neighbors, asked him to identify someone in a photo. They weren't able to. They asked if they knew where Hmong folks lived in our neighborhood. They declined to identify them, and they went so far as to ask, do you know any Asian people in your neighborhood? This has never been about safety. It's never been about enforcing immigration laws with violence. This is just cruelty and racial profiling. A young Karen mother from my neighborhood was taken on a Thursday morning. The family wasn't able to contact her, and by Monday she was in Texas, a trend that all of us understand very, very real. Her 4-month baby is born here and has a DOPA in place and risks growing up without both of her parents. Her husband is also not a citizen. To say that the federal government is enforcing broken policies with violence and ripping families apart is an understatement. Families continue to shelter in place. A mother who cleans houses just recently went back to work with no other option to keep her family afloat. On her first day back, driving between the homes that she was scheduled to clean, she was picked up by ICE, and her family knew immediately because she didn't call to check in. Families are even weighing self-deporting together, even though they don't have to. They have every right to be here, but in order to stay together as a family, their best option sometimes is to self-deport, and they leave everything behind that they've built and had in the communities and families that they have. Businesses in my ward are still afraid, but with the news that the numbers are drawing down, volunteers who staff front doors, help drive workers, and make grocery deliveries are dwindling. Multiple businesses have shared that they are a threat of closing their doors, and not just because of MetroServe, but just indefinitely for the risk and the safety of their clients. But that means entire food systems and workforce ecosystems are on the verge of collapsing from dramatic revenue losses. And it's, as we've heard before, it's nowhere near over. Beyond the profound human toll emerges data on the long-term economic impacts of Operation Metro Sturge. Early estimates are likely undercounted, with $200 million of economic damages in Minnesota alone, with $106 million in lost wages. Local governments are shelling out over $3 million of overtime and over $50 million in past rent due that has occurred in just the Twin Cities metro area. I just want to emphasize that the value of our communities isn't economic or based on the value of their labor or the fact that they put money in the pockets of greedy private equity firms to be housed. It's been a long-standing belief that our communities are more whole and caring and connected, and because we all belong here. The impacts of this violence, as you heard, will be felt for generations within the state, and we deserve accountability. We've heard a lot of conversations about this feeling as an assault on our civil rights, our human rights, and our constitutional rights. And to be brave in this moment as someone that knows very personally what it is like to survive a physical assault, we don't celebrate when they leave. We take stock. We try to take care. We reach out to our community members to see who's there to help bandage our wound, heal a heart, hold us for a moment. So, when we achieve peace in our streets, it's not because it's not because of the absence of masked agents in our streets. Peace isn't about the absence of violence, but about how swiftly we receive justice. Thank you so much for being here and listening to us today.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kim. John, if you want to go ahead and proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is John Pacheco, and I'm president of the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Minnesota. And my focus today is on small business, but I'd really say it's all business, and that the impact here is felt greater across all work areas. How we doing? Latino Chamber of Commerce supports Latino businesses through advocacy, networking, and resources that empower growth and success. We have over 300 and some members that we're working directly with, and there are over 12,000 Latino-owned businesses registered in Minnesota. And they've primarily focused on hospitality, construction, and agriculture. In fact, my grandparents came here to work the beet fields in Moorhead 100 years ago. My parents were both born and raised in South Minneapolis, and I'm still in South Minneapolis, haven't gone far in life. So right now, we do work with across the board, the small businesses, we refer to them, and they're really hurting right now, as others have said about the different level of the economy. So in a brief survey, we found that 86% were directly impacted, 44% had temporarily closed, 28% had limited services, and 51% they've lost over 50-some% of their revenue. And so it's been a really impact here. And when you started out, it's in place. Right now, they're afraid to come to work. We've kind of learned a new language here, where it is the worst of the worst includes a guy standing outside of Costco with a drill and a hammer, hoping someone picks him up and he can go work that day. And they're risking it all to do that, but somehow they are the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst is mothers gets home from work just so she can be there with her kids there. And they're the worst of the worst. And the other one is that we don't have residents, we don't have neighbors, we have aliens. And so there's the time going through here that it's not only the action, but the language. Just the other day, I told my daughter, I'm going to run over to the hardware store. And she did what she always said, where's your passport? And I said, and I didn't even think of it right away, but she is worried about my health and what happens with me when I walk out the door and where I'm driving and stuff. And so we're learning not only language, but we're learning how to survive almost in a lot of this here. We have in ours, it's the impact of the labor. My son runs a restaurant, and he literally picks people up, brings them to work, brings them back home because they're afraid to take the public bus. And we're seeing that across the board, and the response we're getting. And so even the city of Minneapolis, they count like 1.1 million in lost revenue just from conventions that don't want to come here because they're afraid of what they're seeing and hearing. And then I think the other thing is that when we look at what it takes to provide the right economic level, you have Latinos representing the largest percentage of workforce in Minnesota, and yet we're just letting it all go away. And the thing about it too is that the amount of what we're measuring people by and what we're looking at here is the workforce, the economic value. They're not, we haven't spent enough time to work on some of the mental health issues and others, and I think that's going to be the next forefront for us, is that once we get people where the economics work for them so they can go to work and so they can participate. And the thing is that it's in a perverse way. What we've learned is what we've been telling folks for years is that this city, this economy cannot grow without immigrants, cannot grow without refugees, and no matter where you measure it, I could stand still and still pass you up. And so it's something that we'll be working on going in the future here. The other thing is that we have a great network built. Where the Latino Chamber of Commerce is partnering with Latino Economic Development Center and others. We have a GoFundMe stage that we've been raising funds for, and that's going well. Across the board, we've had more volunteers come in from the companies to distribute food. They have more companies, folks coming in to offer to help in either marketing or other things, just to help small businesses get going. We've been very active with the not only the nonprofits, but the faith community has come out very strong in helping us get some of their works done. I know it sounds, it does sound like for some reason that the business will be okay. But I got to tell you, they're still really struggling. And we can go eat, we can go do those things, but the next step is we have to look at what's going on mentally, what is the long-term response for our members and for members of the community. It's when we went through the murder of George Floyd and the Lake Street was burnt, as you look at it now, there's been a lot of work there, and it's coming around, but you can measure it by a building that's no longer there or is going up. It's hard to measure mental health as something like that, a structure. You can't see it, and you can feel it, and we know that has to be addressed. But it's harder to get people supported. They can, like when they can do something easier, like go to dinner or something, which again I would support. But in closing, for me, is that we have a great economic impact with Latinos across the state. We need to rebuild it. It's taken its hit right now. We have great partners in the nonprofits in the Latino community in Minnesota, whether it's Clues, where you're at now, or LEDC, or Latino Lead, or Copal, or Hacer. We have Esperanza. So we have a good network, and it's been built over the years. I think in Minnesota here, we can be very proud of the work we've done with the allies in the community, what we've been doing with the faith community. Again, I think we have a lot to look forward to. A lot of the things that happen within the community is that workforce is an identity. And I hate to say that, is that you feel like you got to get up and go to work. Whether you're standing outside of Costco, like I said, with a drill, you're going to go do that, whatever it takes, because that's your identity. That's your, and it comes with our ethnicity is that part of that identity, and you have to work. And so we find that we're offering and answering a call and saying, or promoting other these businesses, saying we really need to help you. There is an article here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal that you should all take a look at, and it features a couple of our businesses in there, and it really talks about the challenges they're facing. So that's all I have here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I just want to extend my sincere gratitude to each of you for coming here today, for telling your story and adding to this this collection of memories and what needs to be done moving forward. I have so many questions on the advocacy piece and just kind of how the organizing works. I'm sure we'll get those questions to you later, but in the interest of time, unfortunately, we have to move to the next panel. But thank you again. Let's give them another round of applause. I think we're gonna go again. We're gonna get started on the final portion. We're going to get started on the final portion of today's hearing. We're going to be hearing directly from members of the Minnesota community, folks that have wanted to come talk to us about their experiences to ensure that we hear as many voices as possible. So this is kind of like a public comment portion of this. And so I'm going to ask speakers to keep your remarks to approximately 3 to 4 minutes. I appreciate you being here and being willing to share your stories. For the folks that we have signed up so far, we have Javier Vasquez, Executive Director of Centro Tyrone Guzman. We have Charlotte Carlson, an educator, Nimco Ahmed, the founding member and organizer of the Somali American Coalition, Wintana Melkin, the founder and leader of Groundwork Institute, and Mary Ann Quiroz, the co-founder and executive director of Indigenous Roots Cultural Center. And we're going to go ahead and get started on the left side. Javier, if you want to kick us off. Or Xavier.
Hi. Welcome, Miss Javier, Xavier X, no preference. So over the last few months, many of our days start at 5 in the morning and end up close to midnight. And in those long days, we witnessed things inside the homes of our community that many of us never imagined we will see. At Centro Taron Guzman, the oldest Latina serving nonprofit in the state, we work with the Latino community every day. But what we have experienced recently is unlike anything we have seen before. We saw fathers detained or deported. We saw mothers forced to make impossible decisions. One mother had a child who needed to go to the hospital, but leaving the house meant risking being detained herself, and she had 2 other children waiting at home. So she had to do something no parent should ever have to do. She looked at the door for a long time before opening. Then she handed her child to a stranger so that child could get medical care. Because if she walked out that door herself, she might never return. We trusted that stranger, who wasn't a stranger to us, and she trusted Centro. We also saw a mother with a premature baby during all the confusion of what was happening. I remember bringing that baby to the house. I told the mother, please stay inside. She opened the door just a little. I looked around the street to make sure nobody was nearby. Then I stepped forward and handed her baby quickly through the doorway, like we were passing something illegal. But it wasn't something illegal. It was a baby. This is what was happening inside the homes of our community, and yet, in the middle of the fear, we also saw something powerful. We saw how the community responded. At Centro, we adapted quickly. Our staff is also part of our community, which means they were experiencing the exact same realities our participants were experiencing. We invested in what mattered, so we stopped doing strategic planning with proponent profits, and we asked them to support us with the planning with the current reality. We developed 5 committees around food distribution, rental utilities assistance, legal support, mental health support, and volunteers to support our staff and participants equally, because our staff is part of our community. Our human resources director became the staff case manager, supporting their and their families' needs, and staff became our participants' rapid response case managers. We didn't ask staff to use paid time off to deliver food or respond to families. We saw a need and we addressed it, no questions asked. And because the work is still ongoing, we currently have an open rapid response coordinator position to help centralize these efforts and manage the resources that are coming in to support the families. Many things were left behind in the aftermath of what happened. For example, we now have a 15-year-old youth, the brother of a 5-year-old girl from our school whose family had to self-deport, who cannot leave the country because there was no DOPA signed for him before his father was deported. One of our staff members' family stepped in and became his guardian, so he will not be alone in this country. These are the kinds of realities we're navigating. Families began signing DOPAs, which stand for Delegation of Parental Authority, and these are legal documents where parents assign someone who can take care of their children if something happens to them. Many of those families are listing people they don't know to take care of their kids. In my case, I have around 30 DOPAs under my name. And I don't know half of those kids. But I made a commitment to those families that if something happens, I will find their children, wherever they are. I will pick them up and take them somewhere safe, even if that means bringing them back to their country of origin. Because no parent should have to live with the fear that their children will disappear into the system. I am trying to find time now to meet them so they know who I am, so that if something ever happens, they won't be handed to a complete stranger. Back in December, we also created a network of volunteers supporting 5 local businesses every single day with delivery and security so they could continue serving families safely. Food distribution, rental utilities assistance, legal support, DOPAs, supporting businesses, these were not part of our services, but we adapted. Because if our organizations cannot serve our community in moments of crisis, then why are we here? Our youth also stepped forward. They became advocates, protesters, caretakers, fundraisers, organizing GoFundMe campaigns for their parents because all they wanted was to see them come back home. Then we decided we couldn't stay quiet. We had 5 interviews with Univision Nacional. We also interviewed with Mexico and France. And most recently, about 2 weeks ago, a team from the United Kingdom, from Channel 4, the biggest channel in the United Kingdom, followed Centro for 10 days to do a documentary of 25 minutes called Unreported World. It's gonna come in about 3 weeks. So everybody's welcome to watch it and we can share it as well. Through all of this, we navigated the situation with a lot of mixed feelings every day. Vulnerable but strong, tired but hopeful. Some people that couldn't do much because of their status did. And other people who could do more because of their privilege didn't. But even with this, we're also transformed through deep introspection, learning to understand that people act from their own realities shaped by trauma and experiences, and we need to honor that and learn to live in peace with it. But moments like this force us to ask deeper questions. What kind of community do we want to be? Because this is not an abstract policy debate. These are decisions that can literally mean that difference between life and death for a family. When a mother believes her child is safer in the arms of a stranger than in her own arms because she fears federal agents might take away that child, we have to ask ourselves something very serious. Are we really living in the country of freedom we say we are? This story is not the story of those families. It is a test. It's not only the story of all those families. It is a test for all of us. The question is no longer whether we know what is happening. The question is, what are we going to do with that knowledge? How are we using it to transform ourselves individually? How are we using it to work more in collaboration as organizations? How are we using it to leave behind whatever once separated us? Because we all lived through a moment where we were placed in the same category. They made us one in order to pursue us. They isolated us in order to weaken us. So now we have a choice. Let's make ourselves one in order to rebuild. If anyone believed our work was meant to happen in isolation, this time showed us something very clear. We're in this together, whether we want it or not. So let's want it, let's own it, and let's use it as our greatest strength. Because the isolation we experience happened for a reason. And we cannot keep supporting that reason by staying divided. If this month taught us anything, is that none of us are outside of this story. So the question now is not who is responsible. The question is what we're going to build together from here. If there was ever a moment that proved that we are in all of this together, it is now.
Thank you. Thank you, Javier. We're going to turn to Charlotte.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk. I'm Charlotte Carlson. I'm a Minnesotan and a high school math educator in South Minneapolis. I teach at a school where most of our students are from immigrant families. I want to share how the occupation by federal agents has impacted and continues to impact my students, their families, and my fellow educators. Our students, like students everywhere, deserve protection and safety on their way to and from school. Instead, students have been terrified by ICE agents as they sprinted from their school bus stops to their homes. A group of our students was followed into our school parking lot by ICE and had their car surrounded by agents. A pair of students was detained by ICE while driving home from school. Another student was detained at a city bus stop. So it's no surprise that for months, most of my students learned from home because both they and their parents could not leave their homes safely. Countless students also experienced and continue to experience further trauma as parents and other loved ones were detained and or deported. Our students have taken on responsibilities young people shouldn't have to. Instead of just focusing on how to solve exponential equations, which was quite a challenge, they have had to care for their younger siblings and run essential errands. In each class, there are multiple students working full-time hours to support their family. Many of them have also had to navigate the complicated and inhumane system of immigration detention. Every day, I'm in awe of the resilience of my students, but I am enraged that they and their families are experiencing collective trauma due to a racist, unlawful, and inhumane actions by our federal immigration agents. As educators, the trust families place in us puts us in a unique position to provide support, and we have. We created a food shelf on campus. We organized daily school patrols. We provided rides for students. We connected families with lawyers and mutual aid organizations. We helped students locate loved ones in detention. And heartbreakingly, we've also arranged self-deportation flights for families. And we're still doing this work every day. And remember, this is all on top of us serving as full-time educators, and for our educators of color, also on top of fearing for their own safety and their family's safety. While visiting a mom who for 2 months was unable to leave her home safely, she thanked me for our support, sharing that her family wouldn't have been able to survive without it. While I'm incredibly proud of the work of our staff and neighbors, I'm angry that we had to channel our energy into responding to a public safety and economic emergency created by our own federal government. We need 3 things. First, we need all federal immigration agents out of our community. They're still here. Second, we need accountability for the inhumane and unjust ways our community members have been treated. And third, we need resources to help our community heal from the economic emergency and collective trauma that will impact us for decades to come. Thank you.
Nimco, if you could.
Oh, thank you. My name is Nimco Ahmed. I am with, oh, sorry.
It's okay. They'll move it closer. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Nimco Ahmed. I am with Somali American Coalition of Minnesota, and I am a proud member of Minnesota. During the first week during under the occupation of ICE, I was actually out of the country, and I remember a lot of people reaching out to me. I was devastated to watch the news and seeing all the pictures that were coming out of my own hometowns. While I was away, I did watch the news occasionally because it kind of gave me I was uneasy because I left my 2 children here, visiting 2 other children in Somalia at that time. While I was away, everyone was scared around me, and they were like, hey, are you ever going to be able to get back home? And honestly speaking, because I'm an American citizen, I never thought I had to fear to ever go back home. And I remember my friends reaching out to me and asking me whether I had an immigration lawyer, and I was dumbfounded. I really couldn't understand why I needed an immigration lawyer because I'm an American. I said, let's just test this out. I'm going to fly home and see whether I can get back home. I did end up home safely, but I still didn't feel safe. I remember making the decision that I will not be carrying my passport around because I don't have to make that justification whether I'm an American citizen or not, because I am, and I have every right to be here. Days later, I decided that was not the case anymore. I had to carry my passport around because the same way I felt when I was in Somalia is the same way I felt when I made back home, because I didn't know whether I was going to come back home every night to see my children. That was really devastating. At the same time, I was fortunate enough to have a passport, being American, that I could actually go shop for family members and other community members who aren't able to leave their homes. So days and days out, like we would actually go shop, deliver groceries, but yet risk that we might not end up going home as well. That was the devastation to a country that we all came to after a civil war where we wanted to feel safe and home. It didn't feel like home anymore. That country was no longer the country that we once recognized, that country where everyone would have loved to come to, and the country where people around me and around everyone that I have ever known wish that they could actually be in the United States. I didn't even feel like that was the proud country that I once felt proud of. Nevertheless, the stories and the things that were unfolding around us were painful. Seeing an elderly woman taken to custody, becoming unconscious, end up in coma, her family not knowing where she is, and after we went to the hospital, her name was not listed in any patients that were in the hospital, but yet she was in that hospital. ICE decided to change her name. Now she is in coma, shackled in her bed, and no one can find her. Same time, same families. These families all came to this country legal. They just happened to come during a different president, President Joe Biden. He was still the president of the United States. They came legally to this country, but now their documents are not recognized. Their legal status does not mean anything. I remember my friend Montana reaching out to me about a family of 11, 6 of them blind. They still have a status. They came a little over a year ago to the country, but now ICE is banging on their doors. They aren't able to go out. They don't know much people in this state. They recently arrived. The only people that know of them is the schools that their children went to. Now, they have to actually appear in ICE custody. Now, we have to take them. We don't know if they will ever return home. 6 of them are blind. They have legal documents. What is the reason why they actually have to appear in ICE custody? These are the devastating stories. Our lives is lives that aren't recognizable at this moment. Still, people are afraid to leave their homes. People are afraid to do basic things, such as the things that you and I take for granted. You craving for ice cream, you can get out and get ice cream. That is not happening. You want to get some water or some bread for your children. That is not something that most of us can do anymore, or most of the people that are around us. But the state of Minnesota came out for the immigrant communities. When I say I'm a proud Minnesotan, if I can change my name to Minnesota today, I would, because that's how proud I am of my state. There's no place I'd rather be than this state, and there's no place I'd rather be around than with these people here. Thank you so much.
My name is Marianne Ligeral de Quiros. I am an immigrant, a matriarch, a mother of 5, and grandmother of 1, and DOPA for 23 minors. I'm also an abundance practitioner. I have lived here in the east side of St. Paul, where we are all at right now, in Mneezaska, ancestral homelands of the Dakota Ojibwe peoples. My family and I immigrated from the Philippines back in 1989, and this is the only neighborhood I've been in. I'm one of the co-founders and executive director of Indigenous Roots. We're located just right across the street. We're a multicultural, multidisciplinary, and multi-generational hub and organization. Looking back these past 6 months, even before Operation Surge in December, Indigenous Roots, like many organizations and neighborhood groups, took courage, got trained, responded, and protected neighbors and families from across the state. We filled the gaps to provide food and housing security with rapid response and mutual aid efforts. Back in December, I was followed by ICE agents for 3 days between the center and in my home. They would park their car outside, watch me, follow me to the grocery store. Didn't care if I had my children in the car. This was a result of me showing up at a raid right here at Centro Mex with Don Henry with a 2-hour standoff with ICE. And they must have not liked what I said, because they stuck by my side for those days. It was the first time I felt fear of being separated from my children. We all did the best that we could with what we had. Our 1 million humble organization, a small and mighty team of 4 salaried staff with no benefits, stepped up in solidarity with neighbors, business owners, youth, and elders to create the St. Paul Community Action Network in December, which expanded into the Minnesota Community Action Network, or MiniCAN as we like to call it, to continue filling the gaps. Our community pantry and closet continues to operate today, Monday through Friday, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with pickup and delivery options. I say this because hundreds of households and families still come because they are in need of food. We have provided over $500,000 in rental assistance, legal funding, and other mutual aid support. Now, if you do the math, that's half of our operating budget as a small organization. We are no strangers to crisis and community response. We have been fighting for justice from day one, doing immigration rights marches in the early 2000s, fighting for our solidarity with Black and brown relatives through Black Lives Matter, Native Lives Matter, but this time it was something different. It didn't matter what race, gender, cultural background, or citizenship status you had. We all had to protect each other. We fight and resist. We rest and care for one another. But we're all really exhausted. I'm really exhausted. But today, we process the terror and trauma, but we also look and build forward. There's still 500 agents in the state of Minnesota. The metro surge may have decreased, but they are hitting up greater Minnesota more than ever. We stay vigilant. We need to continue fighting for each other. We have demonstrated and practiced abundance locally and nationally. We have to see and feel beyond the now, what we have experienced, for the sake of my children, your children, the future generations. We demand accountability from the government. We demand care and abundance in resources. Thank you.
I think the mic went down, if you want to.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Wintana Melakine. I am the founder of Groundwork Institute. We're a statewide organization dedicated to developing the next generation of leaders. I'm also a proud Minnesotan and a proud immigrant from Eritrea. This journey for me has always been a part of my story because I'm an immigrant, a Black immigrant at that. And when ICE first began to escalate, I remember sitting with my family. It was Thanksgiving Day, and the president had tweeted about Minnesota. And I actually remember becoming fully paralyzed by that news. I have always been a very bold leader and very much a risk taker, occupying and protesting anywhere at all times and being very invested in my community. But that damn Thanksgiving, I was completely shut down. I disappeared. You could not find me for weeks. And over the next couple weeks, I watched people I loved start to disappear. And I tried my best to continue to be a part of my community, and I kept doing the work, but I did it undercover and very quietly. And then one day, my neighbor, Carlo Franco, school board member, called my phone. It was about 10 a.m. on a Sunday. And he says, hey, someone just got detained by you, by where you live. Can I give them your phone number so that you can help them and check them the resources? And I said, yes, of course, and he gave them my number. 2 seconds later, my cousin called me. I thought she was calling me to socialize. What happened was ICE actually showed up at my family's church, and they detained another relative of mine, a U.S.-born citizen, ripped her out of her car, took her to ICE detention, refused to release her, and said to us that they were sending her to Texas. They didn't believe she was a citizen. They didn't want to do the work to look her up. And as someone who's very deeply rooted in politics, I called everyone I could, every elected official, and ICE was just set on shipping her away, regardless of the fact that she was a U.S. citizen. I eventually ended up having to drive to Whipple, somewhere that I had been, which is our federal detention center, which I had been avoiding at all costs. And I had to stand outside because they refused to let us in and wait for them to take her papers from me and then release her to me. After that moment, I completely changed the way I behave. I became very public and very loud because what I realized is that my silence was not protecting me. It was not protecting my neighbors. It was not protecting my family. Since then, working with many people, including NIMCO, we've built an amazing network of leaders who have been doing everything to protect folks. Some of the stories I want to share, as NIMCO shared, the family where they had multiple blind family members called into an ICE hearing with almost no notice. We helped connect them with attorneys and translators. We, just last night, I got a phone call with someone held in ICE detention who just doesn't speak English at all and has no idea what's happening to them. When I landed from my flight, or when I talked this morning, when I met with my local labor union, they told me that they had a member in Texas with a severe eye disease and is getting released, but no one knows how to get a hold of them. So we've been working on that. I've helped people who have to figure out where pets go after ICE has picked up the parents and left them with no one. We've had to book flights for people. We've helped get folks home from New Mexico, from Texas. And in a few moments' notice, we have been scheduling flights and getting people home. We've helped veterans, so many veterans that have been picked up by ICE by being, observers or just walking the streets. And then I think one of the most difficult experiences for me is that, my mother's best friend called me one day while I was at my office, and her sister had been sheltering in place for 15 days. And this was the day that Bolvino had left Minnesota. And so her sister went home, and then I showed up 20 minutes later, and she had believed that ICE had left our state, and she thought she was safe. And she's documented. But the lesson that we've learned is that we are never safe. Today, at this very moment, people will tell you that ICE has left, but I've already received phone calls today of people needing support. And so I say all this to share all these stories. I specifically want to share that we have 3 clear demands as Minnesotans that we've talked about. We want every ICE agent out of our state. Mm-hmm. This is a brand new agency that is non-functioning and not serving its purpose. We want them out. Second, we want all of our people returned. There are thousands of people still sitting in ICE detention who have no reason to be there. We don't just want them to leave, we want our people returned. And lastly, we want to be refunded and invested in for the damage that this administration has caused. Our state is in a deficit because of it. Our small businesses are seeing 80% decrease in sales. Folks are unable to go to work, and we deserve to be resourced and refunded for all of this horrible, horrible activity. I close this out by saying I started this journey being quiet. I started this journey being silenced, and I will end it with all of my people out. I will not give up. I will not end my service. I will not finish the work that I do until I see all of my neighbors back home. And I thank you for being here, and I hope everyone will join us in this movement to get our folks home, dismantle ICE, and invest in Minnesota.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your stories. I know you're our last panel. You're closing us out here. I say this not as the chair of the Commission on Civil Rights. I say this as a human being, as somebody who has lived on the border and seen the things that you all have seen. I am touched deeply by the kind of community response that you all have brought together. The helping your neighbors, being willing to take children into your homes. I had neighbors that did that in Brownsville during family separation. We were on the front lines of family separation during the first Trump administration, and we saw all of the tactics and the ugliness that you all are experiencing here. And it breaks my heart as an American. My family's been here for 5 generations. My grandfather fought in World War II. This isn't the America that I believe in. This is not the promise of America. And I thank you for being honest, for bringing your vulnerability and your pain, because it is painful. But you have each other, we have each other. And you've got people all over the country that are looking at what you've done here and are proud. Because I'm proud. You all make me proud to be an American, truly. So thank you for being here. Thank you to the folks who organized this, Frankie from Hispanic Federation. Our dear friend Luis, Miranda. Hey. Catherine Pichardo, and then just all of the people behind the cameras, behind the scenes. I don't know if they want me to shout out their names because I don't want to do that, but there are just so many people that put this together, that made this a reality. And although this is not an official hearing of the Commission on Civil Rights, I will take your stories back with me to the Commission, because we have been asked to look into this issue since September, right? The Congressional Hispanic Caucus brought this issue up, and it is something that just keeps rearing its head, and it's going to worsen if we don't do something about it. So this is part of doing something about it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you didn't even. You just.
I'm gonna see you in the morning.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. If you could give us your name.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Mendoza Reyes. A lot of people know me as Sarah Kings. I am very, very, very grateful for everyone being here and using your voice and your time to speak up regarding the civil rights violations of the people of the United States, looking specifically at what's been happening over the last couple months, specifically in Minnesota. Thank you to each and every one of you for speaking up, continuing to show up, even though it's been life-threatening situations at oftentimes. I am the daughter of 4 children. We are the daughters of immigrant parents, and I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. However, I was raised here and in a small town in Jalisco, Mexico. As you know, it's been very impacted out there, and we have had multiple family members, multiple friends, members of the community taken, kidnapped, some of these people by officials, federal officials, and other people by unmasked, unidentified agents. In the middle of December of this past year, I went through something very traumatic that I still have yet to process. However, for the last couple months that I've been here, again, to Minnesota, I've been focusing primarily on feeding families in Minnesota, regardless of doing that with a church, with individuals, with other organizations. At the end of the day, I feel like a lot of our end goal is to help as best as we can, from the bottom part of Minnesota to the very top, and to spread that out because it's been happening, as we see, in different states as well. In the middle of December, as we know, a lot of unmasked, unidentified agents had been taking people off of the streets. And the day after El Día de la Virgen de Guadalupe, around December 14th, it was a Sunday, and there was a group that was taken, or a couple were taken from a job site, a roofing job site. It was 5 people, 2 of them were U.S. citizens. There was one last standing when I showed up. Thank you to everyone that's also been using social media to be advocate about the issues happening in our state, because it's allowed us to have the documentation and the appropriate evidence needed to move forward with the civil rights violation case, and just to make a big difference, right, which is what we want at the end of the day. I showed up that day because 30 minutes prior to showing up, some people had posted a live. They needed help. They were surrounded by unmasked, unidentified agents. And when I showed up with blankets, a friend of mine, and food in a bag. When we arrived, there was hundreds of people. However, 30 minutes prior to that, it was 3 or 4 people that had shared the live, and not anyone was really responding. So it was very scary for them and for anyone as well that was out there, because it was negative 20-degree weather. And as we know, it gets very, very, very dangerous, life-threatening. So these people were there for 5 hours working on a roof. Unidentified agents showed up, and they were basically up there for a long time.
When I showed up, I was at the forefront, and I asked them if they had the proper warrant, if they were able to at least identify themselves, so we knew what was happening exactly. They denied all of that from everybody that was there. There was a lot of news reporters, there was a lot of people, there was a lot of children, there was babies too, because family members of those people that were up there working had showed up with their children because they were just so scared and they didn't know what was happening. And at the same time, I see ICE agents, what presumed to be ICE agents, with big guns, with pepper spray, and the pepper spray aiming it towards the crowd, knowing that there was children surrounding us, and not just children, babies. I understand that we have been having this issue for a long, long time. But anything is possible if we continue to unite and fight towards those injustices. That day, I almost lost my life. Because they failed to show proper identification, the man up there that was left standing, he was in a very critical condition. The second to last person did receive medical attention, however, they were detained. It was the brother of the last person that was standing up there. So the second to last person, they were in ICE detention. Even though he wasn't presented a warrant, he wasn't given identification on behalf of the agents. However, he was released on a over $10,000 bond the day of, I believe like the day before Christmas Eve. And he messaged me and he reached out. I don't know how he found me, and he said, "Thank you so much, I just got out." He sent me a picture with his wife and his little kid. They hugged him, and he told me, "I didn't know what had happened. All I knew was that they had taken me. I was so scared for my life. I was scared for my brother's life, who was up there. I didn't know what had happened to him. I didn't know that you were able to reach out to him and the rest of the community of Minnesota that was present that day." When they failed to present identification, I noticed that the back part was wooded and it did not have tape. And this person was puffy from the coldness. He didn't have gloves, he didn't have a hat. He just his bare working hands, working on a roof. And if we know that is very, very dangerous to be working in extreme conditions like that, especially on top of a roof. And when I went through the back part, I ended up in the basement. I found my way up because I heard right behind us, "Stop, we're gonna pepper spray you guys." We told no one that they could cross, but they said not to cross through the front part. And I was genuinely concerned for this person, because if it was any of us, we would have wanted someone to step up and at least hold our hand, or at least tell us that everything's gonna be okay, or that everything's, and because they were running after me and I was just very confused in the moment, I didn't even know what to expect. All I knew was that we were showing up for our community. And so I went up the stairs. It was really icy. I ran up the stairs, I kicked it. I kept climbing up the wood. I didn't have gloves that day either, and I splinted all my hands getting up. I never intended for this to be public. I was honestly just doing this out of my heart, and I just wanted to help out. I brought him a bag with champurrado, tamales, and a blanket. And when I got up there, I looked down and we were surrounded by 10 ICE agents with guns drawn at us. I had no weapons on me, and neither did Marco. He's from Ecuador. He wanted to get down right before I went up. He told me to not go up, and he was scared for my safety. When he was the one up there for 5 hours, they had spent the whole day working there without food, and they were looking forward to just getting lunch. And so I told him to just hold on a little longer. Everyone was rooting for him. While people were distracted at the forefront, in front of the tape, they were telling the agents it's not worth it. This is a human being. They deserve, to be treated properly. There's no warrant. There's nothing that we're supposed to have under our civil rights, under the Constitution, under laws. And as we can see, laws have been changing all the time. Recently, they've mentioned through various sources that anyone interfering, even though there's no proof of them being ICE agents, no proof of them being federal, and no proof of a warrant, to not engage. And this is very dangerous because not only are people that are undocumented that are working in extreme conditions are being affected, children and minors are being affected as well. Babies, mothers with kids, mothers that are pregnant have lost their lives directly as a result of the violent aggression used on the citizens of Minnesota. And so that day when they had their guns drawn at us, all I could do was look into his eyes and tell him everything's gonna be okay. I didn't know what was gonna happen to either one of us. And then my mom calls. And then she's like, Sarah, where are you? Oh, what are you doing? And I told her, oh yeah, I'm just doing errands. It's a Sunday. Okay, I'll see you later. Prior to that, I had spent weeks every day making sure that some way, shape, or form I was able to help out families in need that had been reaching out, because I grew up in the community of Minnesota as well, and I've helped a lot of families get resources and things like that. I am not a member of an organization or a church. I just know that I am a member of this community of Minnesota, of the United States, and of the people. And we the people, regardless of documentation or not, we deserve to have our voices heard. We deserve the rights that the civil rights movement brought to us. After I hung up on that day with my mom, after I hung up on her, we waited another hour up there. They finally left and everyone barged in through the walls, because it wasn't even walls, it was sticks, and they were moving in the wind. And I really thought that that was it. I told my mom I loved her right before hanging up, and I didn't explain to her what was really happening because I didn't want her to know that I was risking my life, essentially. But I didn't care because this is a human being. And we stand up for our neighbors. We stand up for the human beings that make up this country. Thank you, guys. It hasn't been just physical abuse. It's been financial, psychological, emotional. And it isn't just, like we've said, it's not targeted towards a certain group. It's targeted to a bigger population, and that population is the population of the people, of the vulnerable, of those who may not know their rights. There's people that we've helped out that don't know how to read and write, and their husband gets detained, and what do we do when they call us and they're like, we were just wondering if you could help us out because we don't even know how to fill these forms out, and it's been weeks, we're frustrated and we're scared, our husband isn't showing up in the system. This has happened on so many occasions, and on various of them, I have reached out to the police departments so that they could come out whenever they have kidnapped a child of a community, and it's gone live on a friend's feed. Whenever people have reached out for help in other ways, social media or in person, there's people that are also so scared that they haven't left in months. They don't have phone service, so they can't even contact anyone. So when they go outside, a lot of them, that's the last time that they're able to go out, and leaving minors, leaving pets at home. We're here to stand and speak on behalf of everyone, including animals, because their lives matter too. Everybody and anybody. And moving forward from this incident, we were able to help the gentleman at the end escape the situation, thank God. And a month later, his brother is released, but after having to pay thousands and thousands of dollars on a bond when he did not have the process that he should have had. And so I come here to speak on behalf of everybody. I dream of a day one day where we are able to uphold life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everybody in the United States. There's asylum seekers that we've helped that have had their asylum cases stopped, canceled, removed. People that had legal pathways and came through those legal pathways that got them removed as well. And we don't know what to tell them because they need more money for lawyers in order to continue their case. They're not able to represent themselves. At first, we started with just food. From our own pockets, we would just buy bags of food and turn them into the families that would reach out for help so that at least they had something for now. And then we would have their information written down on paper just so that it wasn't public or able to get tampered with. And from there, we would check up on them every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. A lot of women gave birth in their own homes. We thank the retired nurses that went personally to those homes. We thank all the volunteers and the members of the community for their time and their efforts to make sure that they provide safety and protection for the community, something that unfortunately those that are called to serve and protect have not been doing so. When we've reached out for help, all we get told is they cannot interfere with federal operations, even though these are not federal operations that are known to us. So to sum everything up, this is not just 1 or 100 or 1,000 families. This is over 10,000 families. There's still effects. ICE has still been present in Minnesota. We need change, as you've heard, and I was able to fortunately hear the live stream before this. I think every single one of the people that were here to speak on behalf of those who are too scared to have a voice public. I'd like to thank everyone that's here on behalf of the students, people that have been threatened, managers that have been threatened to be fired for the simple reason of letting their workers know that ICE is staying in their premises. And so with this, I urge you to think of humanity, our civil rights, to think of everything that Martin Luther King stood up for, to think of everything that we stand for as a community here in Minnesota, because if you're from here, you know that it's beautiful. Everybody gets together regardless of race, gender, identity, sexuality, and at the end of the day, what matters is just staying united and forgetting everything that they're trying to use to divide us, such as documentation or not. At the end of the day, those are lives. At the end of the day, they deserve a voice too. And so my dream is to one day refrain from using the term illegal and alien, because no one is illegal on stolen land where natives are taken as well. Students of the University of Minnesota, where I attended, are so scared to go to their classes, and a lot of these teachers are not accommodating their needs. So it's not just people of color, it's not just citizens, it's not just students, it's everyone. Everyone who does not agree with the tactics and the harassment and that are standing up for one another. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything you're doing. I hope to connect with you all one way or another so we can continue moving forward from these traumas and the violations of our Constitution, so we can one day have a place where we uphold life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that officially closes us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.